Ready? Okay. So I am Tanyell Austin, and I don't hear the echo. Perfect. Okay. So this technology has been giving us a run for our money this evening, but it's okay. We're still going to share some great information and have a great time. And don't want to overly repeat myself, but I'm the executive director of a family violence resource center in the metro Atlanta area. We focus on domestic violence, child abuse, and sexual assault. And I've been advocating for almost 20 years now. And I am originally from Valley, Alabama. And I, that's all I had.
Okay, with you saying you're from Valley, Alabama, I'm going to share another little secret about Tan. She's my cousin. So, once again, thank you all for joining tonight. We do highly apologize for the technical difficulties. Y'all, I'm not a tech. That's not four letters after my name. But I apologize for the delayed airing. But we're on here tonight talking with Tanyell Austin. She just introduced herself. She is the executive director for an advocacy center. And so tonight we're talking about the restored voice. And it's restoring your voice after trauma. And you probably wonder, okay, so what does this have to do with breast cancer? Tan, I'm going to ask you, are you connected to breast cancer in any kind of form or fashion?
Am. So my mother was murdered by her husband when I was 12 years old. At that time, I moved in with my grandmother, and my grandmother was actually dealing with breast cancer at the time. So I was able to be on the front line and caregiving for my grandmother and watching that process until her ultimate end. And so definitely it impacted my life tremendously.
Is there anything that you would like to share from that experience? How old were you at that time?
Well, I was 12 when I moved in. So most of my teenage years.
So you became like a caregiver for her.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mhm.
Okay. So, and I remember Miss Georgia May. She was the sweetest. For those who may not know who she's talking about, Miss Georgia May Mitchell, that house that sits right there on the corner. Everybody passes by. Everybody knew Miss Georgia May. I still say Miss Georgia May, and she my cousin Georgia May. Beautiful smile, just give you her heart if she could. Um, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and at that time our guest said she had moved in. And you say you moved in because of
My mother was morbid by
okay.
her.
Okay, so that leads me to the next question. um Share just a little bit about that, just if you don't mind, because I think
Sure.
this is important with the restored voice, because I go ahead.
Sure. So my grandmother was 52, I think, when she first got diagnosed. And so from there, it was interesting being a child that couldn't do anything, didn't have a full impact or connection with what was happening initially. And so as she got to the end, is more so when I started to grasp and understand the traumatic experience that she had went through and the connection between my trauma, her trauma, and trauma was still just all trauma. And so it was life changing, definitely. Coming from one traumatic experience, walking right into another traumatic experience, that being breast cancer and how it impacted our family.
So you had two traumas at one time, and at the age you were a teenager.
Yes.
So we heard you say you graduated. You're an executive director of
Yes.
advocacy. Is this what fueled you to walk in this career?
Absolutely, definitely started initially with my mother, and growing up in an abusive home. And for me, just wanted to help out. That's really what I want to do, just volunteer and help out. And the more I encountered victims, the more began to see it was just a pattern that each person was dealing with. And the pattern wasn't the details of the situation. It was a pattern of the trauma and how people internalize their trauma and how they begin to speak to themselves in their trauma, how they allowed others to speak to them in their trauma, and what was holding them back from moving forward. And so everything that we do in my profession more so deals with law enforcement. But we still, once we're finished with that, we help people try to put their pieces back together. And you'd be amazed at how many people just couldn't move past the trauma. They could move past everything else, but the trauma piece had them locked. And for me, seeing your organization operating, it helped me to identify that the trauma is still connected between whether it's intimate partner violence or cancer diagnosis. Trauma is still trauma, and how we internalize it and how we filter our internal conversation and how we filter the external conversation matters about how we're going to move forward and how you're going to live after receiving those devastating diagnoses that you may receive, or the devastation of relationship ending.
Now, if everybody heard like I heard, your diagnosis and your relationship, and some people don't think that being diagnosed with breast cancer will affect your relationship status.
Mhm.
Is quickly to alter it because of the changes that your body goes through, and then we know when those changes take place, it affects your relationship, overall, physically, most definitely, and emotionally. And with those emotional tensions and physical tensions, it can lead to the physical altercations, the domestic violence. So, that is something that we all need to know. And I heard you say something about inwardly, outwardly. We don't know how to process that. Can you give us some examples?
Sure. And it's more so of how we vocalize what we're experiencing ourselves. Often people are not ready to admit what has happened or the news that they've received. A lot of people will try to isolate themselves, and isolation is the wrong thing to do, but you don't know how to communicate with the people around you, so you go inward. We have to be careful with being isolated, because when you isolate yourself, then your brain will interrogate you. And it's not always with the right information. So taking the time to be intentional about what you say, how you say, um, and acknowledging what has happened, but speaking beyond that point, and also being very careful and cautious about who you allow to speak into you. A lot of people mean well, but some of the things that they say can keep you in a wounded state or in a bonded state, or a state that doesn't allow you to have as much hope as you would have had you filtered some of that communication that was coming your way.
Those are those toxic thoughts.
Yes. So,
Sometimes as a survivor on health issue, people like, girl, you sure that's what you want to do? That's toxic.
mhm.
That creates, well, not creates, it increases our fear, because we already have fear within us from the diagnosis. So we do have to be careful for those who that speak to us, speak over us, and speak through us, as well. So I have a question. In your work of advocacy, do you see, well, no, not do you see, how does your advocacy work help survivors strengthen their emotional, their mental, and their physical wellness after a crisis?
First, help people to see that they can go from trauma to triumph. It is possible to build through the truth of what's happening, support healthy boundaries, intentional language, and restoration of your choices. So, restoring the fact that you still have choices that you can make. This is not just something that's happening to you and you just have to sit back and allow it to happen. There are choices that you still have. There's steps that you can still start to take to start to rebuild the next phase of your life, whatever that may be. And I feel that that is applicable with medical diagnosis as well as starting over your life from some type of family violence or any type of trauma. Becoming a part of your own story. Don't let someone else just tell your story. The doctor said, yes, I do understand this is what they said, but if you have any type of faith, what does your faith say? And then what do you say? Allowing the right influence to validate you is important.
Allowing the right influence to validate you. For those who are just tuning in, we apologize once again for the technical difficulties. But we're talking with the executive director, Tanyell Austin, who's an advocate, a very strong advocate. And we're talking about transforming toxic thoughts into hope, healing, and purpose. And my girl Remy, she's on here from Florida. She said that is so true because those voices in your head during those critical moments can be challenging and detrimental. So we have to be careful about, once again, those thoughts that we have. And see, Friday night at our sip and shift, one of our survivors, in her segment, she was Sharonda Lynn, she's on here. Hey, Sharonda. She was expressing concerns about us saying, well, I got to do this. No, we have to be careful and say, I can do this because it becomes toxic in our heads and what's in our thoughts. My mom always told us, what's in your mind is going to
Exactly.
soon be in your heart. All right. So thank everybody for joining tonight. We're a little off the grid just a little bit because we're on my personal page and we should be on our team web page, but that's okay. Nevertheless, we are live. So bridging wellness and survivorship. We all know that there is gaps. There are gaps in the physical wellness. Have you noticed any gaps mentally, from the advocacy side of it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that question. Um, I am not a therapist, but I believe in therapy. I tell people to go to therapy. All the therapists out there, chime in, but in the chat. But it is important that we seek therapy and take their advice when we're going through traumatic situations. And a lot of people, definitely in our community, it's very taboo. We feel like we don't need it just yet. We'll just pray our way through it. But I believe they go hand in hand, prayer and therapy and support. And your support team is so important. And so that's what I always encourage every single victim that I run across. And if they say they're already in therapy, I hold them accountable. What did your therapist say? When's the last time you seen your therapist? Because a lot of people feel like, I don't need a therapist right now. Everything's going good. But I tell people, still go see your therapist even when it's going good because they'll help you benchmark when things are going well and help you see your patterns in what you're dealing with. And they help you learn how to articulate what's happening to you, articulate your feelings, articulate your thoughts. And that is the biggest piece that I think is missing. We don't seek a licensed therapist to help guide us through things. It doesn't mean something's wrong with you mentally. It's just getting professional guidance through what you're experiencing. And everybody's situation is totally different. And that is the biggest gap of people not securing some type of professional therapy.
And I sit here sometimes And I think, just as you said, we think things are going good, so we don't need a therapist. But it's best that we reach out to those resources, because before it gets to that point where you think, okay, now it's time, I need one. No, that could have been avoided earlier if we had just taken the moment to say, well, let me just go see what the therapist is saying. And I also, not just a therapist, but a coach, because you can go see a therapist and they'll listen to you and explain everything. But then when you leave your therapist, you may need that help in understanding how to get where that point that you and your therapist have discussed.
And that is what the feed
Yes,
is coach and coach
and
how
coaching.
you
And
apply.
that's why we got you on tonight, to help us. And I know October is Domestic Violence Month and Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but August is Mental Wellness Month. So we got to get right up here before we can go further into it. I just want to read off a comment. It says, we must find the right kind of therapy that works for the individual journey. Finding the right kind of therapy that works best for you. Right.
Absolutely.
So, because friend over here going to therapy, that doesn't mean that you need to go. You need to find the one that's best for you. We're talking about mental wellness tonight. Y'all, welcome to the Pink Portal. Pink stands for prevention, inspiration, navigating, and knowledge. So while on this survivorship journey, and it's just not survivorship of cancer, we need coaching. That's why we're called team. We are a team, and we're trying to be coached into a better mental wellness space. So tonight we're creating a space of mental wellness, talking with Tanyell Austin, who's executive director of an advocacy center that's federally funded in the state of Georgia, who she is has some connection to breast cancer, and in her role, she is an advocate. She helps survivors restore their voices. And if you hadn't ever experienced any type of life altering event, you lose your voice. You lose your voice, and it's very important that we learn how to share our stories, no matter if it was I was diagnosed, or I'm a survivor now of whatever experience, or I went through this traumatic experience in my lifetime. I made it out. I want to encourage others. You can do the same. There is hope, there is healing, because we all have a purpose. All right, so I'm gonna start running my mouth. I'm just gonna ask you a question. Now, I heard you say going to therapy. How can we find these resources? Because y'all know we think Dr. Google is everything for us. Can you share? How can we connect with some of the resources for advocacy or for mental wellness?
Well, for advocacy, it depends on what type of advocacy you're looking for. However, I think what a lot of people don't realize is there are trauma-informed therapists, and then there are regular therapists, there are more spiritual therapists. So identifying what avenue you feel you need to go down first. And just remember, you can always make a U-turn. So if that therapist does not work for you, you can change the therapist. And sometimes you outgrow your therapist. You outgrow, and it's time for you to see someone else. But there are so many different networks, and actually, a lot of people don't like using AI, but you definitely can use AI to find platforms where you can find advocacy support as well as mental health support in your local area. And oftentimes you can also speak directly to your healthcare provider, and they often will refer you to someone as well.
Now, this question is going to kind of go into what you do. Um, so, in domestic violence, like I said, I know this is not the month to discuss it. What are some of the practices that you encourage or that you partake in with being a victim's advocate. What are some of the practices that you encourage others to engage in to help them?
And so
And so don't
I
I
don't
don't
just do domestic violence. So I have experience and with touching the child abuse and children who have been witnesses to child abuse, as well as sexual assault. So we do all the sexual assault cases in our account. We do all the rape kits, all of those things, and we advocate with them through that entire process. So seeing different types of people at different phases of their traumatic experience, because when people are coming in from the domestic violence side or the intimate partner side, violence side, they may be severe trauma, or they may be, coming out of the trauma, or just somewhere stuck in the middle. So get a chance to see people in all different walks of a crisis. And the biggest thing that I think we have to help them do is I have to help them identify that they are being victimized, that have to give them space to validate what they feel. Um, and, growing up, in an abusive home, I had this whole perception of what abuse was. And it was when I started working in the field, it was like, oh, wait, there's so many other people that are just like me, that are experiencing this. And so it really made me take a step back and process. Okay, so how did she get here? How did he get here? And how do we help all of them? And the biggest thing is helping people to know that they're in a safe space. And I think this holds true too for the support team of those people who are dealing with breast cancer. And I say your support team, I like to call you like you're like the first responder. You may be the first person they tell, and how you respond to them dictates what they do next, the help that they get next, or how they think about their situation next. So managing with the victim, managing my body language, managing my words, giving them space to say whatever it is they felt like they experienced, whatever it is, however they're feeling. If you want to cry, you want to cuss, you want to scream, whatever it is, let's validate those experiences so that we can now move forward. And now this is where we are, like the map in the mall. It says you are here. We have to know where we are first before we can move to the next spot. And so then, and that's why every case and situation is going to be unique, just like every diagnosis is unique to that person, where they are in their life. And then you start to map out where are we going to go, where are you willing to go, because everybody's not willing to go, where are you willing to go, and how can I support you right then and there. And that is the basis of everything. And I think when you're supporting people who have gotten a cancer diagnosis or dealing with a medical condition, making sure that you help them feel safe, feel validated, feel heard. And you don't always have to talk. A lot of people say, well, you're the professional, Ellie, and they think they can't do what I do. I promise you, you can do exactly what I do. And that is simply be human. And it is a very simple principle of treating people the way you want to be treated. Like, be human, help validate their experience, give them a safe place, let them be assured that what they're sharing with you is going to be confidential until they tell you otherwise. And just simply giving them the gift of presence, just being there without having to over express yourself, over talk, or I know this happened to my cousin, or she, this, that. Don't over express, right, your story. Just let them be in that space and be there with them. And then the healing can begin.
Girl, you stepped on my toes. I'm gonna tell you why. Because I used to be so excited when I started sharing my story. Oh, how was this and that? And so finally, a part of our caregiving program, we have the L, and it's named after Pearls, after my mom. And the L is for a listening ear. Sometimes
Mhm.
we, the survivor, have to just be quiet
Mhm.
and just allow the other one who's trying to get where we are, we have to allow them to just share their story. No judgment zone. Like you said, our presence is very important, and just be listening. Don't cut it off and say, well, my cousin did, like you said, or I know so and so, I know somebody. Just be quiet and just let them talk. I think I got one toe left after that. So
Same
same
way.
way.
So
So
every
every
victim come in, I want to say, "Oh, let me tell you what happened to me." And I was like, "Okay, no, this is their time to talk."
I'm just gonna read off a comment from Remy. She's in Orlando. She says, "Tanyell, you are a beautiful, bright, shining light as a survivor of childhood trauma, and I know the importance." Y'all, I'm trying to read with my context. I know the importance of your role, and I thank you for all you do. Your journey matters.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Yes. So, and if you choose to, there a couple more questions, and we're gonna be off. Um, so, and I heard you mention this twice, and just share just a little bit if you choose to, because like you said, being an advocate, you're an advocate for sexual abuse, for children. Y'all do the rape cases, the rape kits and cases, domestic violence. I know some days when you come, if you're like me, because we're kind of in the same line of work, but you're you're about 10 levels ahead of me. Um, how is it when you get home? Where is your mental space? Because that's something else that we talk about it being a pearl is the S. We still have to remember self. So how are you? What's your space like some evenings?
Well, I have to laugh a little bit because I'm always talking to my staff, and they always poking me, saying, "You do it, you do it." Um, Definitely, I have to know when it's time to pull away because for us, no every phone call, every email, every knock on the door is someone's worst nightmare. There is nothing in between. Everything is a crisis. And some of it I'm built for, some of it still jerks me, and the children still make me cry tremendously. But for me, I definitely know that I have a gift for it. I'm well trained. We must stay trained in order to stay accredited. And I know I'm fully equipped to do it. And so there's like a switch that goes on when I encounter victims. But I will say to myself midday, I got to stop. That case I just heard, I stopped. And so the biggest benefit that we have is our mental health package. So it's like we have so much time for mental health because it's so important. You may get a phone call and you may be triggered by something that happened to you as a child because everybody has a story. And so we'll step out, take a walk. And so we have a lot of things set up in our office space to help us decompress, but it's also okay for you to just leave for the day. And for me, I don't have that luxury all the time, because at my level. But what I will definitely do is I play a lot. Like I am very silly, and I love to, go out and do self-care. Self-care for us is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And that doesn't mean getting your nails done. That means truly just going to the park and decompressing. I feel like getting your nails done, getting your hair done, those are maintenance things. Those are things we should do as women, team. But that self-care piece of taking a walk at the park, those things help me. Journaling is something that I really impress upon victims because you need to see where you are, where you're going, and sometimes look back and be reminded of how far you came. So I'm heavy on the journaling, and um, I like to just spend time alone, but I do spend time with friends and family in the midst of it. And then I love to volunteer, so that helps me. So going to do something totally unrelated to the world that I work in and volunteering. And then I definitely see my therapist regularly, no exceptions.
Okay, y'all, she's giving you pointers because you're on here tonight. We're learning how to restore our voices. after a traumatic experience. A cancer diagnosis is traumatic. Going through an abusive relationship is traumatic. Growing up in an abusive home is traumatic. And we're not going to leave this out as well on your job. There is abuse on the job as well. There is abuse at church as well. These are things we don't want anyone to carry throughout their life and have not been healed from. You haven't restored your voice from it, because I think facing the giant is what we need to do. And she's given us pointers tonight. First of all, get that team. You got to have a team. That first of all, team, you need to be present. Okay, show your friend, your loved one, that you're there for them. Provide a safe space for them. And survivors, you need to find a safe space as well. Don't depend on everybody else to do these things for you. You have to begin somewhere, because if you don't begin within you, inwardly, then outwardly, that it could be some problems. You don't need to be validated by anyone else, but you need to validate in your mind that, hey, I want healing. I want genuine healing. See your therapist. And first and foremost, identify that you are a victim. Identify that you are a victim to whatever it may be, but also identify that you can be a victor. You can be victorious
Absolutely.
over what has victimized you. Okay, it can be done. And I think, and we got to learn to manage our words. We got to learn to manage our words. We got to learn to manage our words. And I'm just talking to myself now out loud, and I know it's 8:53, and we're supposed to be off in by 7 minutes. So, Tam, one last question. Now, it's not a question. The talk with Tan, the truths with Tan. Let me get it right. The truths with Tan. Let's talk about this space and what is its purpose.
So the truth of Tanyell came about because I started to identify patterns. And I started to identify patterns, not just in victims, in my own life. How I was showing up in my relationships, and how I was showing up in my family connections, how I was showing up in my friendships, and realizing that trauma completely shifts you. And we just keep going and not realizing that I was traumatized. I can't just put it to the back. I have to deal with it. And now, how do I function? So, something I always tell victims, um, uh, uh, violence is, now that you've survived that, you have to now unlearn all those survival skills. And that takes time. It's like peeling back layers of an onion. So now you're in a whole new relationship, but you're still traumatized and you're still reacting out of that trauma because you didn't really face it or acknowledge it or deal with it. Um, and so I think that is where I came up with, okay, I think we need to talk about this. We need to talk about the toxic thoughts, the toxic talk that we say to ourselves because somebody else has said it. And now I slightly believe it, or I no longer believe what I believe because I'm not sure if what they said, you get confused and you start to lose yourself. And so you shrink and you shrink and you shrink in your conversations. You shrink at your job with combative coworkers because you're having issues at home. So you don't know how to respond to anything anymore. You completely lose yourself. And that is where, that came up with. I wanted to help us to highlight the patterns that I see within myself of how do we change these toxic thoughts, these toxic words that we say to ourselves. Forget everybody else. How do I start doing the internal work on me?
And it all begins within me. Everything begins within me. Our choice to identify if we are victim or not, it begins within us. Our choice to identify if we want to be healed from what we've experienced. Um, this has been awesome. I thank you so much. I was trying to take notes because I know you were talking to me, but so once again, for those who have joined, thank y'all for joining us. I see you, Tracy. Hey, Tracy. Um, we have had the opportunity to have Ms. Tanyell Austin, who's the Executive Director of an Advocacy Center in the state of Georgia, and she does not just advocate for domestic violence. She advocates for children, sexual abuse, those who have witnessed abuse in their homes. Those in a relationship, adults. She advocates for them all. She has even advocated for us breast cancer survivors on tonight, experiencing it as a teenager with her grandmother, who was diagnosed. She advocated for her. She's her voice. She was her caregiver as well. And I always say this: education is good, but experience is better. And so she's been a victim herself, so she knows. And as you heard what she said she just it's just not that she speaks this, but she's certified in this as well, because she has to have continuing education in these courses, and how to continue to help advocate for not only herself but others in the community as well. So I think this is going to conclude our session. Unless there's something else you want to share, don't let me hinder you. Something else you want to share, go
I just
ahead.
want just I guess to sum it all up, to go from trauma to triumph. I look at it like with the four V's. Victimization, you got to identify what happened to you. Vocalization, what do you say to yourself about what happened to you? And visualization, what can you see beyond your current condition? And validation, who determines your worth? And if you can keep those four B's in perspective and do a self check on those, and I think that you'll always go from trauma to triumph.
Now I'm gonna stand up in front of somebody and I'm gonna say that like I thought of that. From trauma to triumph. That should have been the name of this segment. From trauma to triumph. How do we go? Victimization, vocalization, visualization. That is key right there. How do we see ourselves after this? How do we see ourselves after this? And validation. Who do we look to validate us? We need to look to us ourselves first to validate. We don't need anybody else to validate who we are or who we are becoming. Because we're going to come out of this. We will
Absolutely.
come out of this. Tan, I thank you so very much. I think that is it. Share if there is someone who wants to just reach out to you if possible, how can they contact you, and also your platform of Truths with Tan.
Truth with Tanyell on
On
Facebook and Instagram, and you definitely can reach out to me, and you can reach out to me directly. You can send anybody can follow me, and you can send me a message if you need support with domestic violence, child abuse, or sexual assault, human trafficking, anything of that nature. Or definitely, I'll be talking about a whole bunch of fun things on Truth with Tanyell, and you can definitely reach out to me based off of that platform.
Okay, once again, I'm going to apologize, and I know I shouldn't be revisiting, but I'm going to apologize for the technical difficulties that we had in the beginning, because I know it can shift you as well. It can kind of take you out of your element. But for those who just tuned in or tuned in a little bit later than what we started, this will be loaded to YouTube. I say by Thursday or Friday, so it'll be loaded to our Team Whip YouTube page. Is there anything else you would like to share with us, Tanya?
Just remember that your situation doesn't have to define who you are and where you go in life, nor does a diagnosis define who you are and where you go in life. Life is not over just after having one traumatic experience or getting one bad diagnosis. There is life after, and your story matters, and you matter. And those who are caring for people with those situations, just be very cautious and conscious of how you show up. And just know that it's important that your presence is just that, a peaceful presence.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. The Restored Voice with Tanyell Austin. We appreciate you so kindly, so very much for taking time out of your busy schedule and sharing your insights and thoughts, empowering words with us that will help us shift to who we are becoming once again. So thank you so very much. And if it's anything that we can do, you just let us know. So with that being said, we are exiting the pink portal where we are prevention, inspiration, navigating, and knowledge. Thank you all so very much, and y'all have a great evening.
Thank you.